Hello everyone, welcome to the Geoecologist. I am Dr. Krishnanand and you have been watching my videos on various topics of geography on my channel, The Geoecologist. If you are new to our channel, for the earlier videos, you can go to our playlist section and check for yourself that what kind of topics have we covered till now. And if you're looking for paid courses related to UPSC Geography Optional or for UGC NET exam or for Master's Entrance Examination, all these courses are available on our website, that is TheGeoecologist.com, and also our app is there, the Geoecologist, in the Play Store, which you can download and start online learning from there. So now in today's session in political geography, we are going to learn about a very interesting concept, that is the politics of displacement, especially the issues of relief, compensation, rehabilitation related to the displacement created through dam creations in India or through special economic zones in India. We are going to discuss in today's session. So watch the video till the end. It's going to be very interesting, and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel and please share the videos with others as well. So now let's learn about the politics of displacement in today's session. Especially we are going to talk about the issues of relief, compensation, rehabilitation with special reference to the dams and special economic zones in India. So I'm sure you must have looked into the newspapers or articles or also in history books that there have been several politics related to displacement of people, especially the displacement of poor people who do not have much of access to resources, in which cases especially where there is a large scale infrastructural constructions like dam construction or special economic zone creation. So displacement is basically a significant issue, especially development related issue. That's where the politics of development comes along, politics of displacement. So large scale development projects such as dams, special economic zones, these projects often tend to evacuate people from their original sites, right? So while these projects have the potential to bring economic growth and development in the region, right? So the idea is positive, but what happened? More often you will see that there is a result which is displacement of communities and loss of livelihood factor of these communities. So that's what we are going to learn. So if you observe certain points here, development-induced displacement here. So this is called DID, development-induced displacement. This is an idea which is based on doctrine of eminent domain. Now understand, this is very interesting to look into. It itself says that it raises the classic debate of power of state versus individual rights. So if you are being asked to evacuate your land because there is a construction of certain infrastructure for the state or by the state, then what's going to be your thought process? So you are going to demand to the state that I want a particular compensation or I want a rehabilitation site where I could reside with my family. So these kind of things are often coming up. But most of the time what you observe in the news that these rehabilitation, compensation or relief is not sufficient or is not done or given properly to these people. So there is always a agitation and there is a politics surrounding this displacement as well. So what you observe here, protests happening across. So protest against the compulsory acquisition of land for construction of manufacturing units, such as we have seen examples from Tata's nano car in Singur, where 997 acres of agricultural land were acquired to set up a factory for one of the cheapest cars in Asia. And remember the project, the Tata's nano car project, and the project was subsequently moved to Gujarat because there was a agitation. If you see here these images, these posters from newspapers, right? And then what you observe, the development of special economic zones were in Nandigram, and that's again you observe that there was free Nandigram from these people, or large scale construction of dams such as Sardar Sarovar Dam on Narmada River. We have seen Narmada Bachao Abhiyan or Andolon as well. So Medha Patekar being one of the prominent leaders in this. So this is what we observe here, and this is all surrounding changing map of this particular population and this particular region. So that's why it's geographical, it's studied in political geography through politics of displacement. So what you observe here, dams and displacement is the first thing that we need to observe. So dams are often seen as crucial component, and remember, multi-purpose river valley projects were supposed to be the building blocks of modern India, right? So they provide irrigation, hydroelectric power, flood control mechanism, and several others, and also some livelihood opportunities are being promised. But what about the flip side of it? The large dams have been responsible for displacement of millions of people around the world and India as well, right? So in many cases, these communities have been living in the area for generations, and now they are being removed and they are asked to leave from that particular place. So what happens? They rely on natural resources provided by the river for their livelihoods. Now what happens? Because of development-induced displacement that we are talking here, the displacement of these communities is often accompanied by a range of negative socio-environmental impacts, right? So these communities lose access to their land, water, and other natural resources, and has a devastating impact on their livelihoods. And in addition, construction of dams can also lead to deforestation, soil erosion, and other environmental degradation. So in totality, the social as well as environmental, all these impacts are quite visible. And if you see these images here, so no displacement, go back NHPC here in Meghalaya, Himachal, Assam, and several other states, Arunachal, Uttarakhand, we have seen these kind of protests, and which is basically related to dam, or we say dam induced displacement, right? So what you observe, dams and displacement in India, one of the most well-known examples is the Sardar Sarovar Dam on Narmada River, right? So if you observe, the project displaced 320,000 people, 320,000 people, and mostly from tribal communities from Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Gujarat. This is one of the important part to look into, that who were displaced. So these were the people dependent upon natural resources itself. They were the tribal people. So despite protests and legal challenges, the project was completed and displaced communities were resettled in new locations. Now this sounds very cool that okay, we settled them in new locations, but what happened? There are certain issues that cropped up. Resettlement sites lacked basic amenities such as clean water, electricity, healthcare, and displaced communities were left struggling to rebuild their lives. This is where the main challenge is, right? So what happens here? You'll observe several protests at other sites as well. So another example of displacement due to dams is the Polavaram Dam in Andhra Pradesh. Now look at this particular case study. The dam project, which is still under construction, is expected to displace over 2 lakh people. And most of them again are coming from tribal communities. So it looks like development versus tribal communities somehow, right? So the project has faced significant opposition from local communities and activists who argue that displacement and environmental impact is going to be a big problem. And also it's not being adequately addressed. The problems of rehabilitation or resettlement is not so simple, right? So we have to address these communities sitting on dharnas, right? So what you observe here, again, in special economic zones creation, there is also displacement apart from the dam. So special economic zones are another type of large-scale development project where acres of land are given for industrialization, and also they attract foreign development index FDI and attract foreign investment. So what do you observe? Special economic zones are supposed to bring economic benefits to the host country, right? And displacement of communities due to SEZ is often accompanied by a range of negative socio-environmental impacts as well, like in the case of dams. So here again, what you observe is these kind of agitations or protests. Why? Because there is a problem of deforestation, soil erosion, livelihood loss, and several others. So you'll observe these kind of slogans as well. Na jaan na zameen denge, vikas ke naam par visthapan band karo, zameen ki loot band karo. What you observe out here is that there is a dissatisfaction, right, in the people. So in communities, there is a thought that people coming from outside are trying to take away their land, their water, their natural resources. And most of these communities, as we know from the data, are tribal people, right? So they are not very affluent people. So what you observe, these cases, for example, in Gujarat, right, we observe the Mundra, right, this Mundra port. So what you observe, home to massive coal-fired power plant and several other industry, and this has several impact on environment, and it has also led to displacement of so many fishermen and farmers here. Right, so you observe these kind of protests here, right? Another example is POSCO, Special Economic Zone of Odisha, and you observe which was expected to displace over 20,000 people. The project faced significant opposition from local communities, activists, and several others. And what you observe, result is that despite protests and legal challenges, the project was eventually scrapped in 2017. So you observe these kind of protests in many parts of country, right? So what is the issue now? The issue is that these displacements are inevitable if you have to do large-scale construction. Then what is the solution? The solution is giving them appropriate relief, compensation and rehabilitation. But is it done? There is a question mark here, that is it done appropriately? That's where the dissatisfaction comes from, right? So that's where these communities go to protest, that we are not given what we deserve. So when communities are displaced by large-scale development projects such as dams and special economic zones, it's very important that they are provided with adequate relief, compensation and rehabilitation, right? Relief efforts should focus on meeting the immediate needs of displacement communities, and compensation should be duly given in loss of their land, property, livelihoods. So what you observe here, that rehabilitation efforts should aim to help the displaced communities rebuild their lives in new location. That's a big challenge. Now imagine a community living there for thousands of years, displaced to a new location. They have to face all these challenges from scratch. So that's what we observe here. So what you observe, in many cases, the relief, compensation and rehabilitation efforts provided were not good. They were not adequate. So that's where the problem comes from. So amount of compensation offered is far below the market value of land and property that's being taken from them. Now there is not an equality in between the land that you take, that value, and then the land that you give, that value. So that's another thing. And then in addition, the new land provided to displaced communities for resettlement is often of poor quality. So not just quantity of land, quality of land also matters, because these are poor people, mostly agrarian community, dependent on horticulture, agriculture and several others. So what you observe, the quality of land is very important for them. So if it is not being addressed properly, it means there will be an agitation, and we have seen several such agitations as well, right? So what you observe, problems of entitlement also is there during compensation, right? So in cases where people are displaced due to developmental projects, compensation for the affected is a crucial issue, and many times mostly there is a problem because of entitlement. So what you observe, compensation is generally viewed as measures intended to address the losses incurred by those people, right? But the impact many times is negative. So losses incurred by these people, right, affected by creation of infrastructure such as project offices, townships, canals, transmission lines and other activities are not accounted for, and thus are not adequately compensated. Then what you observe here, compensation is usually awarded to whom? To those with undisputed legal titles, leaving out tenants, sharecroppers, wage laborers, artisans, encroachers. So what you observe, where will these people go? Right, there is a lot of problem here. So what you observe, the vulnerability increases. These people need more support, right? Then comes community assets and common resources such as grazing grounds, we say common property resources, and forests, so which are critical for livelihood of these poorest of communities and are not compensated under the acquisition process. That's where the major problem lies, right? So what you observe, the legal provisions. So legal provisions for challenging the rate of compensation are very limited. Suppose you say I have to be given X amount and you're not getting it, then where will you challenge it? So that challenge process is also very limited, making it inaccessible for negatively affected persons who may not be aware of legal nuances. Even most of these people are illiterate, so they cannot go to the court or they don't know the procedure. So these kind of things are very important. Also, going to the courts for remedy is a little expensive. So studies have shown that cash compensation is often depleted by negatively affected persons in very short period, sometimes by fraud, repayment of old debts, liquor and conspicuous consumption. So what happens if you're giving cash? What happens? These people are not ready to understand the utility of cash or invest them in the market. So they consume it and it's over, it's gone. And that's where the problem is. So leaving them assured an irrevocable destitution. There's a vicious cycle of poverty that continues again. So compensation has primarily addressed the loss of assets and property, not the rights to people. That's where the challenge is. And basic of compensation has been legal ownership and individual claim, with compensation for loss fixed assets such as agricultural land based or prevailing market rate, right? So on prevailing market rate, when you compensate, calculation is as an average of registered sale prices of land or similar quality in location in recent past. So that's how we do it, that how was the recent past that area being sold or at what rate, and that rate is simply taken. So compensation is based on the value in exchange rather than value of replacement. So exchange value will be very less than the value of replacement. Same quality of land would cost more, right? So that's where these points are very important to look into. And what is the way forward in such situations? Remember, compensation for displaced individuals is an important issue and needs to be addressed. The current compensation prices are often inadequate and exclude these vulnerable groups, leaving them in state of destitution. So inclusive idea of this compensation has to be there, right? So if somebody is a tenant or a sharecropper, they should also get the benefit of this kind of situation, right? So additionally, there is a need to ensure the legal provisions for challenging compensation, right? These people should be able to challenge if they are not being compensated properly by the authority, by the local authority, right? So that's very important to understand. So now, when we have discussed the various topics related to politics of displacement in today's session, this marks the completion of our political geography playlist, and for the next video you can also keep subscribed to our channel. And if you are new to this video, you can go to the earlier videos available on political geography on our channel. And if you have anything specific to say, or if you want us to create any new other videos on political geography, do comment in the box and we'll be taking care of your requirements. So all the best wishes to all the learners. Don't forget to share these videos with more and more people, more and more learners, so that everybody gets the maximum benefit. So stay tuned for the next video. Best wishes.